Hello, everyone. Today, we are in a place called Asakura in Fukuoka Prefecture. If we check its location on the map, you'll find it roughly in the center of Fukuoka Prefecture. That should give you an idea. Japan's capital is often considered to be the place where the emperor resides. Currently, since the emperor is in Tokyo, many people consider Tokyo to be the capital. Today, I'd like to introduce you all to Emperor Saimei of the Asuka period. This emperor once resided in Asakura, where I am right now. In other words, according to the previous concept, this place, Asakura in Fukuoka Prefecture, was once the capital of Japan. Now, why did Emperor Saimei come all the way to Kyushu? This relates to the situation on the Korean peninsula at the time. At that time, there were two countries on the Korean peninsula, a country called Shilla, and a country called Baekje. As a result of the conflict between these two countries, Baekje was defeated. In desperation, Baekje asked Japan for help. Thus, Japan decided to send troops to aid Baekje. In this way, the emperor moved to Kyushu. In other words, this place called Asakura was a frontline base for Japan to help Baekje. The place I'm heading to now is said to be where the emperor lived at that time, according to legend. Nowadays, it's hard to imagine that an emperor once lived around this area. This place has become something completely different. Frankly speaking, it's very rural. You have to take a narrow road to get here. This is the place where, according to tradition, Emperor Saimei once moved to. This is Tachibana no Hironiwa Palace in Asakura. Now, I've gotten out of the car, and I'm in the parking lot. In this parking lot, there's a signboard, so let's read it. It seems that there used to be a temple around here. That said, I'm not here to see the temple, so I was about to move on. But can you see this? It seems like no one has been here, because there's a huge amount of spider webs here. I almost went through here, but let's take a detour around it. Now, as we move around, we can see a small open area. You know, it seems like hardly anyone comes here. As you can see, it's not exactly in a well-maintained state. The signboard says, Asakura Tachibana no Hironiwa Palace Site. It states that Emperor Saimei, what is this? On May 9, 661 AD, in order to assist Baekje, moved the capital to this place. For 75 days, until her passing, this was the capital. As written here, those of you who heard my earlier explanation can probably understand this. The sign next to it. I took a look to see what it says, and it turns out that it's written in English and Korean. So it's a sign for foreign visitors. I do wonder if foreign tourists would really come all the way here, but anyway, there is also a stone monument with a Japanese-style painting on it. Let's proceed further ahead. Earlier, the spider webs were quite a lot, so we need to be careful of them while walking. Actually, the last time I came here, I didn't notice the spider webs and it turned into quite a mess. Climbing up the slope is not too tough. It's not very far. Probably about 1 or 2 minutes of walking, and we'll come to an open area with a stone monument. As I've been mentioning earlier, this is the place where it is said that the emperor once resided. As I've been saying earlier, this is merely a legend, and there isn't any conclusive evidence proving 100% that this is the exact place. But based on the name, people think it might be somewhere around this area. And that's why this monument was erected. There's also a signboard here. Let's read it. It says historical background, and it explains that at the end of the 4th century, the Korean peninsula was divided into 3 kingdoms, Baekje, Goguryeo, and Shilla. These 3 kingdoms repeatedly fought each other, and eventually, Baekje was destroyed by the allied forces of Shilla and Tang. Baekje then sent envoys to Japan, with whom they had long-standing relations, to request assistance. In response, Empress Saimei and Crown Prince Naka no Oi accepted the request and decided to send a rescue force. That's what it says here. Emperor Saimei, along with Crown Prince Naka no Oi, Prince Oama, and Nakatomi no Kamatari, set sail from the port of Naniwa and headed by sea to Tsukushi, relocating here. However, the emperor passed away after a short stay of just 75 days. These are names I remember learning in Japanese history classes in middle or high school. Crown Prince Naka no Oi later became Emperor Tenji, and Prince Oama later became Emperor Tenmu. Nakatomi no Kamatari later took the name Fujiwara no Kamatari, becoming the first of the Fujiwara clan. He is considered the founder of the Fujiwara lineage. Now, as we head back to the car, let's talk about what happened to Japan's attempt to assist Baekje. The Japanese army that went to assist Baekje was defeated by the allied forces of Tang and Shilla. Naturally, this led Japan to think we might be their next target. As a result, they began to strengthen their defenses. Now, let's look at the map and make some predictions. Where would the Tang-Shila allied forces likely invade Japan from? Naturally, they would probably land in northern Kyushu, which is closest to the mainland. Therefore, northern Kyushu was heavily fortified. Asakura, where I am now, is around here. And Hakata Bay, where the enemy would likely attack, is around this area. As you can see on the map, there are mountains running east to west here, so if the enemy were to invade, they would be funneled into one area due to the terrain. Thus, the key point for defense is roughly around here. A defensive position was established to connect the mountains, and castles were built around this area to strengthen the defense. This defensive facility is called Mizuki, and among the castles in the area, the famous ones are Onojo and Ki Castle. Since this video is about Fukuoka Prefecture, we won't be visiting Ki Castle in Saga Prefecture, but now we're heading to Onojo and Mizuki. So, let's head back to the car. Bidding farewell to Asakura, our next destination is Onojo. This place witnessed a historical event that shook Japan during the Asuka period, and thus, there are many legends surrounding this area. From Asakura, we will first head northwest toward Route 3. Even among people living in Fukuoka, there may be those who don't often have the chance to visit Asakura. For those people, I recommend taking this opportunity to visit. After traveling for a while, you will come to a large intersection like this. As you can see from the sign above, Route 3 is a right turn here. After making the right turn, you'll find Route 3, which almost every resident of Fukuoka has driven on at least once. Next, we'll head north on Route 3 toward Fukuoka. As I explained earlier while looking at the map, this area, due to its mountainous terrain, is a place where many vehicles converge, so it's usually quite crowded around here. We'll now leave Route 3 and make a right turn. On the signboard to the left, it says, "Welcome to Dazaifu, the city of historic sites and romance." This area is Dazaifu, a famous tourist destination in Fukuoka. Passing through the approach to Dazaifu Tenmong Shrine, we arrive at the busiest intersection right in front of Dazaifu Station. If you go straight here, you'll reach Dazaifu Tenmong Shrine, but now we're heading to the left. After proceeding for a while in this direction, you will see a bridge like this. After crossing the bridge and going up the slope, the road turns into a complete mountain path. In the middle of this mountain is where Onojo, our destination, is located. Now that we've arrived at Onojo, let's briefly review the route we took. After leaving Route 3, we headed north, and now we've entered the mountains. Here, there is an informational signboard that says Onojo Ruins and Hyakin Stone Wall. As I mentioned earlier, in the battle, Baekje was defeated, and those who lost fled to Japan. It was these people who mainly built Onojo, which is why Onojo is called a Korean-style mountain fortress. These details are written here, and below there is a bird's eye view. As I mentioned earlier, it was constructed to prepare for enemy invasions, as you can see. Onojo was an important defensive base for protecting the surrounding area. Although it no longer exists today, there used to be a warehouse around here. Most likely, it was a place for storing food and weapons. However, in the end, the Tang-Shila allied forces never came to Japan, so Onojo was never used as a battlefield. Gradually, Onojo fell out of use, and now, as you can see, while there are a few remnants of stone walls, for the most part, there is hardly anything left. And nearby, in addition to Onojo where I am now, there is also, as I mentioned earlier, Mizuki. Next, let's head to Mizuki. So then, we're leaving Onojo and heading down the mountain. As we descend, we'll head north, then change course and turn south, heading toward Mizuki from the Hakata Bay side. In other words, this is the route that was assumed the enemy would take to invade. Incidentally, the name of the local municipality around here is Onojo. Many people probably live here without knowing that there's a castle. Ahead of us, we can see the Fukuoka Urban Expressway. Once we're this far, Mizuki is just a little further. Instead of taking the road toward the Route 3 bypass, we're going to turn left. After passing under the expressway, you'll see mounds like hills on both sides of the road. This is Mizuki. To an ordinary person, this scene of a blue sky and a vast grass field might just seem like a beautiful landscape. However, the row of trees you see in the distance, that is Mizuki. As you can see now, cars can pass through here. Well, actually, even in the past, that area was passable. Mizuki is written using these kanji characters. It literally means water castle. Although it says water, you can't see any water around here. That's because there used to be water stored in this area, which is why the character for water is used. I think it would be easier to explain that story later rather than now, so I'll tell that story later. For now, let's take a look at what's written on the nearby signboard. Mizuki Ruins. It was built 1,350 years ago to protect Japan from Tang China and Shilla on the Korean peninsula. It is described as a fortress consisting of a moat filled with water and earthworks. I hear the sound of an airplane. And Fukuoka Airport is in a very convenient location, so hearing sounds like this is quite common in Fukuoka. Most likely, the view of Mizuki from that airplane must be beautiful. There's a map here as well, but of course, aerial photographs make it easier to understand. Here is the aerial photo, and currently, I'm roughly around this area. As you can see from this, it's obvious that there's something man-made here. The unnaturally straight line of trees is Mizuki. Looking at the map here, it also says Mizuki Ruins, and you can see the green area extends far into the distance. Although it's called Water Castle, at first glance, it doesn't look like a castle. Rather, it looks more like a levee. Since we're here, let's walk along the side of it. From a distance, it looked like trees were planted here, but as we get closer, you can see that there's earth here. If you look to the other side, you can see that the area I'm walking on now is one level higher, and there's grass growing below. This grassy area was once where water was stored. In later times, even in other castles, they used water to create moats to prevent enemies from approaching. As we walk for a while, you can see the expressway coming into view. We walked from far back there to right under the expressway. Crossing this road is quite difficult, so we won't cross, but Mizuki continues further beyond. Now, let's head back the way we came. But it wouldn't be interesting to just go back the same way. So instead of walking along the Hakata Bay side, let's take the opposite side. Now we've arrived on the opposite side. Being on the opposite side means that where I am now is the side that Mizuki was protecting. So, what exactly was it protecting? That's the question. Back then, nearby, there was a town that wasn't just the most prosperous in Fukuoka, but the most prosperous in all of Kyushu. That town was Dazaifu. It's not entirely clear when Dazaifu was established here, but the most popular theory says that Dazaifu originally was closer to Hakata Bay, and after losing to the Tang Shilla allied forces, it was moved inland to a more defensible location. We often hear this explanation. One of the purposes of building Mizuki was likely to defend Dazaifu. However, as I mentioned earlier, the Tang Shilla allied forces never actually invaded Japan. So then, the Mizuki eventually lost its significance as a military facility, and gradually, this place came to be used as an entrance and exit to Dazaifu. To put it simply, it started serving a role similar to a checkpoint. This signboard is about the road that existed during that time. To the left, there is a narrow road currently passing through, and this road is the one that has existed since ancient times. The road where cars are currently passing was built later. Since this is a place with historical significance, on the left side, there is a stone monument with Mizuki Ruins inscribed on it. If you look at its base, you'll see some stones with holes in them. What could these possibly be? As I wonder this, I move a bit further ahead, and there's a sign on the right side. So let's read it. It says Mizuki East Gate Ruins, and the content is similar to what I mentioned earlier, though it's a bit more complex. What stands out clearly is the combination of the photo and the illustration. The stone with the hole I saw earlier marks where a gate used to stand. The holes were used to attach pillars and doors for the gate. That's why the stones had these holes. These stones with holes were well known even during the Edo period, and were called Oni no Samishi, the ogre's ink stone. People coming from places like the Kinki region would pass along this road in front of us on their way to Dazaifu. To the left, Mizuki is still there, and beneath it, there is an exhibition room like this. This is the Mizuki Kan, part of the special historic site, Mizuki Ruins. Inside the Mizuki Kan, there are several informational boards and exhibits that make it easy to understand the history around Dazaifu. Let me introduce a few of them. This area of Fukuoka in northern Kyushu was one of Japan's diplomatic hubs, and Dazaifu, which oversaw Kyushu, was also a center of diplomacy. You can see the official road connecting the sea in Dazaifu. Here is Ki Castle in Saga Prefecture, which we didn't visit this time. The place named Kiyama remains in the area. The scenery depicted in this illustration is what the area looked like during the Nara and Heian periods. Here is an Onigawara, ogre tile. It was found in a nearby river, and it is believed that there was a building near Mizuki that used this tile, and it got washed away and was found downstream. Here, there is also a model of Mizuki. There is an outer moat, an embankment here, and then an inner moat. To the south lies Dazaifu. The outer moat is wider to prevent enemies from entering, while the inner moat is narrower and built at a higher elevation than the outer moat. It is believed that water from the inner moat flowed into the outer moat. This is probably something the staff uses for explanations, but there is a restored depiction of Mizuki. Seeing what it was like back then illustrated like this makes it easier to imagine. There are stairs that lead up to the top of Mizuki-kan, and as you climb them, you can reach a small observation deck from where you can look down at Mizuki. The direction I'm looking at now is toward Dazaifu, and the cluster of trees in front of me is Mizuki. If you look to the right, that's the direction of Hakata Bay. Here is an illustration that recreates how it looked at the time, and you can see how different it is from the present day. Now, let's leave Mizuki and head toward Dazaifu. The place where the gate once stood still serves as an entrance to Dazaifu today. As we saw on the map earlier, Mizuki and Dazaifu are not very far apart. By car, it would probably take about 5 to 10 minutes to get there. During the Nara and Heian periods, this was an important location as one of the diplomatic centers, and it was called to no Mikado. The word Mikado was written as Chote, but in those days, the term Chote referred to the imperial court in Heijō-kyo or Heian-kyo, which are modern-day Nara and Kyoto. Political affairs were conducted there, and as its regional office, Dazaifu existed in Kyushu. Since it was an imperial office far away, it was called to no Mikado, the distant court. And now, we have arrived at the distant court, Dazaifu. Here we are at the parking lot, and the location where the Dazaifu government office once stood is on the left. However, instead of going in from there, I think it's better to enter from the front, so let's head toward the front first. We've now come around to the front. There is also a stone monument that says Dazaifu Ruins. You can see a mountain in front of us, and the open area in front of the mountain. This is where many government buildings once stood for administrative purposes. However, I know it might be hard to imagine what it looked like just from that, so I'll show you one of the informational boards we saw at Mizuki-kan earlier. There was a magnificent gate like this, and beyond it, another gate. Then there was an open courtyard, and at the very back stood the most important building. This was the layout. Looking at the nearby exhibit, it says, Capital Connecting with the World. Western Capital. Capital welcoming foreign envoys. This shows that during the Nara and Heian periods, Dazaifu was an important diplomatic center. Probably because of this historical background, there are also signboards here in English, Korean, and Chinese, providing information about Dazaifu to make it accessible to people from various countries. Now, let's head toward the gate area we were looking at earlier. But before that, I think it will be easier to understand the explanation if we grasp the overall layout first, so let's take a look at the nearby map. Our current location is marked in red here. It's basically symmetrical, with the south gate, central gate, and main hall lined up from south to north. Even if I say that, it's hard to imagine just by looking at this view. So on the right, there's a model, and on the left, an aerial photo. The place I'm standing at now is the south gate. If you look at your feet, you'll see stones that supported the pillars. They're probably not from the original structure, but they are called foundation stones. These foundation stones help us imagine what the structure looked like back then. When Mizuki was built, Dazaifu didn't have buildings that used such foundation stones. Instead, they used what are called hate bashira, where pillars were simply buried directly into the ground. The buildings using these foundation stones were likely constructed after the Nara period. As we've been talking, we've now arrived at the central gate. There are also traces of foundation stones here. If you look to the left, you can see a straight path extending. And there's also one on the right side. What are these? Well, they are called corridors, which means that the area was surrounded by a hallway. You can easily understand by looking at the model on the lower right. Looking at the model, you can see that from here, there was quite a large garden or open space. And at the end of that open space stood the main hall, the central building. In those days, Japan didn't have a formal legal system, but instead, they had what was called the Ritsuryo. The most famous one is the Taiho Code. It was under this Taiho Code that the Dazaifu system was established, and around 50 people were dispatched to work here. The site I'm at now, the Dazaifu government office ruins, can be divided into roughly 3 different periods. The first period is around the Asuka period, when Japan went to help Baekje but was defeated by the Tang Shila allied forces, and Dazaifu was moved to its current location. However, in the end, the Tang Shila allied forces never came to invade Japan, and Dazaifu flourished as a regional government office. This is the second period. Then, during the Heian period, a man named Fujiwara no Sumitomo led a rebellion and came to Kyushu. Fujiwara no Sumitomo, who had come to Kyushu, stole treasures from Dazaifu and burned down the government office. In the end, Fujiwara no Sumitomo was defeated in Hakata, and the rebellion was suppressed, but since the Dazaifu government office was burned down, it was rebuilt. This reconstruction marks the third period. The current pillar layout is from this third period. And as we've been talking, we've now arrived at the main hall. This was once the place where Japan's diplomacy took place, and where the governance of Kyushu was conducted. When people think of Dazaifu, many often think of Dazaifu Tenmong Shrine, but the place that was once called Dazaifu was actually here. If you ever visit Fukuoka, please consider coming by.